Okay, so we've gone through all the basics of storyboarding in Photoshop with this tabbing method, but the one thing we still need to talk about is file organization. And especially for storyboarding, file organization is extremely important. Because when you're storyboarding, you're not only constantly creating new panels, but you're also constantly revising panels and inserting panels and moving panels around. And it's really important to know how to do that as efficiently as possible so you can just focus on the work rather than all this boring stuff. So I think the best thing to do all this in is probably Bridge. If you don't already know, Bridge is Adobe's file management program, and you can just download it from them for free. All right, so in the other videos I did, you can see me always numbering my story panel with 4 digits, and I always number them in increments of 10. Let me break down why I do it this way. The reason I number them in increments of 10 is because when I'm first roughing out a sequence, I usually have to go back in and insert a bunch of panels into a section that I already boarded and saved. Like, check out this walk cycle. I basically drew the 2 extremes of the walk cycle, but obviously I need to put more panels in between, right? But luckily, because of the way I numbered them, I now have room to insert up to 9 panels in between these 2 drawings. So let me just draw the pose that goes in between these 2 panels, or at least a super quick rough version, and I'll name it 0015, so it lands smack dab in the middle. Okay, so I have my middle pose, but doing it this way causes a slight problem, because with the tabbing method, you have to flip through the open tabs in Photoshop to see them move in sequence, right? And the order of the tabs up here is the order that they flip. So we have to somehow get panel 15 in between panel 10 and panel 20. And by the way, just dragging it over doesn't actually work. I wish it did, but it just reorders them visually. It doesn't change the order they flip. So, what are our options? Option 1. We can save panel 20 and close it, and then reopen it so that it opens after panel 15. That works, and as you can see, they now flip in order. Or, option 2, we can duplicate panel 20 so that the clone 20 appears after panel 15, and then go back and close the original panel 20. That works too. They're now flipping in the right order. There's also a third option, and that's to save out all our panels, including our new panel 15, and then go back and reopen them all so that they open in the right order. This third option is probably the cleanest method, but it can be kind of a pain if you're working with lots of panels. Like if you've got 20 or 30 panels opened as tabs, closing all of them and then reopening all of them every single time you want to insert a new panel can be sort of annoying, but it definitely works. But whatever option you use, just always make sure you save out all your panels before closing them. Worst thing in the world is when you accidentally close a panel that you thought you saved but didn't. All right, so that's why I save my panels in increments of 10. The reason I use 4 digits for all of my numbering is basically so that I have room to grow. Sometimes I'll be working on a sequence that's hundreds of panels long, and if I give myself 4 digits with increments of 10, that means I can have up to 999 panels in my sequence. And at least in my experience, that's usually way more than I'll ever need. Now let's talk about how to quickly rename all these panels using batch rename. Here's what you do. You just select all, and then you go up to Tools, and then Batch Rename. You can also just use the default Bridge hotkey, which is Command-Shift-R or Control-Shift-R, and that'll bring up the Batch Rename window. And once you're in Batch Rename, you can easily renumber all of your panels. The first part is the sequence number, using 3 digits, and you can see the 3 digits represented here. The next part is text, which you can just put to 0. This 0 is placed at the end of your file name, and that's what makes the file names increase by 10. And if you want to play around with how the file name is built, you can press these minus or plus buttons to add new segments. And you can also drag them around to reorder them. So when should you actually rename all your files? There's usually no reason not to do it as much as you want. I usually go in and do a fresh batch rename once I'm done with my storyboarding session, or even if I'm just feeling like the numbering is getting a little messy and I want a fresh start. But the most important time to batch rename is when you're rearranging your panels in Bridge. Let me show you why. By default, your storyboard panels will be sorted by file name. But the moment you manually rearrange a panel, which you'll be doing a ton of, Bridge will change the sort settings to manually. What this means is that Bridge will know how to sort your panels, but if you look at the panels in any other application, or if you try to send your files to a client or something, they'll still be sorted by file name, and your rearrangement will be lost. So just remember, anytime you rearrange your panels in Bridge, you also have to renumber them. Just select all, batch rename, renumber them starting from 1, press OK, and you're done. Super fast. And that's basically it, except I have one more little tip about how you can add dialogue to your Bridge panels. Like if you want to be able to add and change dialogue and action text in Bridge rather than baking it into your storyboard panels, which I always prefer because that way I can make quick changes on the fly, I figured out the best way to do that is by using this metadata tab. Let me show you how it works. I just take the panel I want to add dialogue or text to, double click here, and then type out the text. It even works for when you select multiple panels. You just add the text for all of them at once. Here's how you set it up. First, go up to the Window menu and make sure you have Metadata checked. Then you go to Preferences. Then you go to the Metadata submenu. Find the IPTC core dropdown and click the little arrow. Check the description box. Make sure everything else under the dropdown is unchecked. And then make sure Hide Empty Fields is checked. Press OK. And then now you should have a spot to write quick dialogue or action text. I have no idea what IPTC core means, but it works pretty nicely for writing out dialogue. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to export this metadata text so it can be viewed outside of Bridge. So you do still have to find a way to bake the dialogue into the story panels for your final export. And there it is. Pretty much everything I know about organizing your storyboard files using Bridge. Hope it helps. See you for the next video.